Hello there, people of the internet. So, I've made a couple of videos kind of discussing this topic about why you might want certain platforms. And I figured I'd go ahead and I'd make this one here. Why someone might want a battle rifle. So, let me define what I mean by battle rifle. Let me adjust my camera real quick. You guys are looking a little high. What I mean by battle rifle is some sort of semi-auto self-loading rifle chambered in a full power rifle cartridge that was typically intended to be used in some sort of combat situation. So normally whenever people think about battle rifles, they think about something like this right here. This is a Setme C308 based off of, it's built off of a Setme parts kit, which is basically a Spanish G3. There's more to it than that, but for intents and purposes, for simplification, we're just going to call this a Spanish G3, or a PTR 91. It's the roller delayed semi-auto rifle chambered in 308/7.62 NATO. Now, people normally think of this, they might think of like an FN, FAL, or they might think of something like an AR-10, or something that just fires a full power rifle cartridge. This one right here is chambered in 308. Most of your battle rifles are going to be in 308 because that is just the NATO standard, technically 7.62 NATO. Not really the same cartridge, but for all intents and purposes, just for this particular discussion, we're going to call them the same cartridge, although I am acknowledging that they're not, alright? So don't go freaking out in the comments down below. But just because that is a standard cartridge, that's what most of your battle rifles are going to be chambered in. At least most of your modern day ones anyway, and we'll touch on that here in a second. So 7.62 NATO, that's a 150 grain-ish bullet that's going to be moving at about 2,800 or so feet per second. It's on par with 30-06 M2 ball, which sent the same bullet traveling at about the same velocities. With most of your modern battle rifles, you're going to have some sort of external magazine, so you can swap out mags pretty gosh darn easily. A lot of them have some sort of rail system on them and iron sights and basically all of the stuff that you would need. A lot of people focus on these rifles with the intention of touching out to longer distances than something like a 5.56 would be able to do. That's one thing I hear very, very commonly. I'll take my G3 rifle or my FNFAL or my whatever sort of full-powered battle rifle over an AR because I can touch out to longer distances than you can with that 223 round. Well, if you have yourself a battle rifle that is better than 4 MOA grouping with like M80 ball, which is the standard military NATO spec that most people are going to be using, then you have yourself an anomaly of a rifle, because these rifles, the ones that are made for essentially combat, they're battle rifles that are made for combat, they're not made to be sub-MOA rifles. They're not made to be sniper rifles. They're not made to touch out to ridiculously long distances. Like, let's say you have yourself a 4 MOA gun, and most of these guns really aren't 4 MOA. They're even worse than that. But let's say you have yourself a 4 MOA gun, which is pretty gosh darn standard with that level of, or that ammunition coupled with these types of rifles, right? You got yourself a 4 MOA gun. That's 4 inches at 100 yards. 5.56 is effective out to 500 yards. Like, it can touch out beyond that, but we're going to just call it 500 yards because that's like the general agreement on the effective ranges of 5.56. 7.62 NATO, if it smacks you beyond 500 yards, then you're definitely going to have a pretty gosh darn bad day. But that being said, if it smacks you, if you have 4-inch groups at 100 yards, that's 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. That's 20 inches. That's almost 2 feet worth of spread at that 500 yards. The likelihood of you getting a first round impact with your 7.62 NATO rifle is just not very high, and that is within the realms of an intermediate cartridge. So even if you did go out and get yourself some sort of full power battle rifle with the intention of being able to touch out to longer distances, the capabilities of the rifle are still within the realms of that of the 5.56, which is something that most people don't think about. If you have yourself a particularly accurate rifle, then hats off to you by all means. That being said, can you yourself touch out to distances beyond 500 yards? Because like 99% of people cannot do that. That is if you can do that, you are by far among the extreme minority of capabilities whenever it comes to shooting a rifle. So now that that's out of the way, let's talk about some benefits behind this. So big con, less ammo because it's heavy. Huge pro, the ammunition is more powerful, and that is the concept behind the battle rifle. You get more powerful ammunition. With that more powerful ammunition, you get the benefits of turning cover into concealment, meaning if somebody's, say, hiding behind a brick wall or something like that, and you send a couple of rounds of 7.62 NATO into it, that brick wall is probably going to be a little holy at that point. In multiple ways, but it's probably going to punch some holes through that brick wall far more effectively than something like a 5.56 ever would, and that is one of the huge benefits of a full power rifle. You just have more power behind that cartridge. That being said, with the less ammo that you have, do you really want to go spending your ammo punching through brick walls where an enemy may or may not be? You definitely have the issues with like suppressive fire or breaking cover or something like that, where you have to spend your ammo and you have less of it, and that's definitely a huge con of these rifles, especially considering that the distances that most engagements are taking place at are still well within the realms of something that 5.56 would be able to handle. So, I'm sure somebody's going to bring up body armor. Yes, body armor does exist. No, it is not all that common, even in your modern combat situations. We see that going on with various combat roles around the world. There are people going into combat without body armor. I can't name any places because then the YouTube algorithm will get very upset with me. But I think we all know what I'm talking about. There's people going into combat around the world right now not wearing body armor simply because body armor is not as mainstream as we like to make it out to be. It takes a significant military force to outfit its entire force with body armor. That being said, if they are wearing body armor, 7.62 NATO /308 still cannot go through it, at least if they're wearing modern body armor. Modern body armor is exceptionally good at stopping even battle rifle rounds. It's good at stopping black tip 30-06, so if you think your lead core M80 ball is going to penetrate that body armor, then you're sorely mistaken. That being said, I'm sure someone's going to say, well, it smacks them pretty good. Were you in the middle of typing that comment? I bet you were. Smacks them pretty good, so they're going to go down anyway. They'd go down if they got smacked with a 77 grain 5.56 round center mass. Like, they'd still go down. No matter what happens, if they're getting hit, you know, center mass, even if they're wearing a plate with a rifle round, they're still going down. I don't care if it's full power or intermediate. It's going to knock the wind out of you. So the big pro with this right here is you do have more power, you do have the ability to punch through things, but there's just so many cons whenever it comes to a battle rifle. It's to the point to where there is a reason why, like, most of your militaries around the world have gone to an intermediate rifle cartridge. Battle rifles are just kind of a concept that came about a long time ago. I don't really want to give any dates because, man, there's some serious back and forth whenever it comes to dates of these battle rifles. But the battle rifle concept is kind of like a yesterday's concept. That being said, if you want a battle rifle, I'm not telling you not to get one. But back in the day, whenever people used to use bolt-action rifles, let me grab one here. They used to use bolt-action rifles in full-power rifle rounds. These right here were actually done for logistical simplicity, so they could use full power cartridges in their machine guns, and they were like, well, let's just give the infantry a full power round as well. Not only that, but bolt action rifles, back whenever these right here were being fielded and used in the early 1900s, late 1800s, that particular time period, they were extremely easy to make, they were extremely bomb-proof, etc., etc. The technology for self-loading rifles just wasn't there. However, there was some instances where self-loading technology really began to come to light and battle rifles really started to take place. This right here is the M1 Garand, however it is you feel like pronouncing it. This is a battle rifle. This is a semi-auto self-loading rifle in a full power cartridge. This is chambered in 30-06. in particular M2 Ball 30-06, which has the same ballistic specs as your 7.62 NATO does. 7.62 NATO was built around the idea of having the same ballistic specs as M2 Ball, just in a shorter cartridge. But this is a battle rifle. This came out and was adopted by the United States military in 1936. So almost 100 years at this point. It's 2024 at time of recording this video. This is an old concept. This was before the intermediate cartridge technology really began to showcase itself in the world. Once Germany came up with the STG-44, and the Russians came out with the AK-47, and the world really began to see just how effective an intermediate cartridge was, the concept of the battle rifle was wholeheartedly put on the back burner. It took a couple decades for that to happen, but it did happen. Nowadays, like I said, most countries around the world are adopting some kind of intermediate cartridge firing round. I got a few other battle rifles over here. This one right here is an Egyptian Hakim 8mm Mauser semi-automatic. This right here, once again, is a battle rifle. Because of the limited capacity, most of your battle rifles are set up to be fed from stripper clips. That also helps cut down the weight of transferring ammunition. Again, you run into that weight problem. Just the weight of full power ammunition is extremely heavy in comparison to an intermediate caliber round. So the Hakim rifle, 8mm Mauser, that's a full power round, that's a large round, that's a heavy round. It does have a stripper clip guide on it to where you can shove rounds into your magazine via stripper clip. So this way you save a little bit of weight. This right here is a rifle design that came about, I can't remember when. I'm going to go ahead and say the 50s, somewhere around that time period. Again, a significant amount of time ago. Like about the time where the United States was messing around with the M14 concept. We have a French MAS 36 rifle, or not MAS 36, this is a 4956. This particular design came about sort of in 1944, I think was the date. And this right here was what the French were trying to adopt as their semi-auto self-loading rifle. It originally had a fixed magazine that was 5 rounds. They adopted this external 10-round magazine, which was definitely the better play, but it still can be fed via stripper clip with this stripper clip guide right here. This right here is, once again, antiquated technology. The battle rifle design came about during the time era where battle rifle designs were all the rage, and no one really took into consideration having a intermediate cartridge, because intermediate cartridges really had not made their debut on like the full-fledged, what's the word I'm looking for, full-fledged military view. They had not been come across enough for people to really admire just how effective an intermediate cartridge was. It wasn't until Vietnam, where the United States was coming up against the AK-47, that they saw just how effective an intermediate cartridge rifle was. The United States was going out with their M14s. They were 7.62 NATO, full auto, completely uncontrollable, versus something like an AK, which had lighter weight ammunition, significantly larger 30-round magazine. Soldiers could carry a lot more ammunition, and in the jungle warfare of Vietnam, where things were up close and personal, it really did show just how effective an intermediate cartridge could be. And most encounters aren't necessarily like really up close and personal like the jungles of Vietnam, but most encounters are well within the realms of what a 7.62x39 would be able to handle, or a 5.56 would be able to handle. There's a reason why people have moved to that. So you do have the benefits of more power, but man, you have a lot of cons whenever it comes to a battle rifle. So thanks for watching, folks. This video's gone long enough, I feel like. I'm going to go ahead and do the outro. Like, subscribe, share. Description below is a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. I guess I'll see you on the next episode.
Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.